food and ag very much gets that tradition of, actually you're talking about farmers, you're talking about produce. Please can you explain to the audience, sort of again, the vast array of opportunities within a food and agribusiness?
Yep. I think that it's really exciting on the Sunshine Coast particularly, and the wider region, is that we do have such a vast array. So we have, from a membership point of view, we've got artisanal producers, we've got food manufacturers, regenerative farmers. There's a whole range of people, craft distillers, all of those different kind of industry within the food and agribusiness industries. And off the back of that, from a career perspective for young people, or kids as Wanda wants us to say, we really, there can be food science, it can be, sales and development, it can be about so many different things. And all of those things are really quite exciting because, depending on where that business is at, they might scale or they might be smaller, and those needs might change over over time. I mean, things like, product development, for example, there might, we've got like Sunshine and Sons, which is a craft distiller who make award-winning spirits here on the coast. They're always looking at product development and new different ways and collaboration and that they can make. I think a couple of weeks ago, you might have if you're on their mailing list, they just made an Easter, hot cross bun gin. And it's now a limited edition. So who would have thought that you can get a hot cross bun gin? But that's what these businesses are doing here on the coast. It's incredible. So that's an example of that. Another one is Montville Coffee. They're out there innovating in that product space because they want to make sure that they've got, really sustainable packaging, sustainably and ethically sourced products, and all of those kind of things. So it means that there's a whole product development opportunity out there. When these businesses start to scale, all of a sudden you start stepping in that you need business development people or you need marketing people to start talking to those markets. So in the food and agribusiness industry, across what we offer, there's so much, you can basically do so many different things. And with being in a small, if you are in a small to medium-sized business as well, I think one of the things that I picked up from some of the stats I think that Tracy was saying was the fact that they these youngsters coming through just love that diversity and they loved to be able to see things. What better to do that in a small to medium-sized business that's on a growth trajectory, and then all of a sudden you get it at a ground level, and then the next minute you're taking on a market in Norway or something like that. So it's really quite exciting, and I really do think that outside of those traditional, because of course we've still got traditional producers and beef farmers and all of that kind of thing, but there's just so much more. Even agritourism as well. All of a sudden with agritourism, you're opening up a direct link between the producer and the consumer themselves, so they can actually see people, talk to people, have them taste their product. In that whole agritourism sector, which also relates to hospitality jobs and, event management and all of those things. So it's actually, even though it's food and agribusiness, it's actually quite an array. And when you look at the actual roles in our industry, it's quite incredible the amount of, what you've got there.
And you mentioned a lot of those traditional industries. One that people don't always relate to in food and agri is technology. Obviously, and some of you might not know, but Brisbane, last 2 weeks, just hosted Evoke Ag, which is a agricultural, it's all about tech in agriculture and some of the amazing businesses down there and startups. But Beck, how would you describe how technology is taking over a lot of that food space?
Oh, it's incredible to see, and we've got a lot of our fan members who are actually out there and doing it. So we have a regenerative farm business, Eastwell Farms, that's in the Noosa region, and they use sensor-based rain gauges that are digital to help them to reduce their overall water usage, but then also that makes the soil healthier, and then that increases the health of their crops that they're growing, which they're growing for their cows to eat. And then if the cows are healthier, then all of a sudden the people consuming that meat is healthier, and it's and it's organic and all of those kind of things. And shout out to Eastwell Farms, if you're not eating their beef, you should be. But that's one example of it. There's there's so many more. Like McCormick's Gourmet Garden, who's one of our bigger employers here on the coast as well. They're using automated processing. They're using AI for quality control. So all of a sudden, in a big business like that, that means a lot, because they're trying to increase their production efficiency, but at the same time they need to keep that level of quality control. So to be able to do that through technology is just incredible. Another example, Walker Seafood. They actually use satellite tracking to do better, more sustainable fishing practices. I mean, who would have thought that a company here on the coast is doing satellite tracking to track to that kind of thing? It's quite incredible, the amount. Sunshine and Sons as well, again, they're using technology to distill their spirits in a more environmentally friendly way to create less of an impact on the environment. There's all sorts of things from those perspective. Then if you look at some of the consumer stuff that happens as well, there's a brand called Surge, which I'm not so sure whether people have heard of Surge, but Surge help venues like this to, using AI-based technology to actually have a better experience for people who are coming to a venue like this. And it's really important. It might work for people who are, who have special needs. So whether there's a disability or whether they might be neurodivergent or something like that. And it's incredible. But these are being driven by consumer demands. The one thing that I did learn out of OCAG, which was quite amazing, but not surprising when you do think about it, because of the weather events and because of everything that we go through, mainly in that primary production space, Australia is we're one of the best at innovating, but then also adopting. So, some of the talks that were had down there in terms of what people were doing was incredible, but to sit up there and actually have primary producers, people who are producing, organic beef and things like that, and telling them about these scientific-based things and technology-based programs that they've been involved in, and what it means for the health of the land, the health of the animals, and the health of the products that come out at the end, which is better for us as human consumers. It's just it's quite amazing what's going on. I even saw a drone that's called Sky Kelpie that was basically herding sheep, and it was at a place that was 1,000 kilometres away. And it was just incredible, some of the stuff. So technology is definitely in the food and agribusiness sector as well.
And you mentioned it is healthy crops, healthy animals, but that's also healthy humans, and it really goes towards the health industry of actually making sure that we are what we eat, and the healthier we eat, the healthier we become. I've got the opportunity while sitting here to ask you to talk about my business or our business, and it would be remiss of me not to. Is that Turbine is a big project for the coast. It's a game-changing project for the coast. So it'll be great to really understand from fans' perspective is really what it's going to bring to the region and the ability with both innovation, education, and scale-up.
So for those of you that don't know, Turbine is Australia's first collaborative food and beverage manufacturing precinct that's being developed, and it's being developed here on the coast. And it's going to be it's basically enabling businesses to grow and to scale, and to do that in a more economic way than what they normally can do. The infrastructure is being built down in the Caloundra area. And it's going to be state-of-the-art facilities. So they will have access to shared services such as packaging, manufacturing, bottling, storage, R&D, testing, sensory testing lounges, all of that kind of thing, as well as soft skills. Like there's the opportunity for like HR and that kind of thing as well. It's going to be a bit of a game changer for those businesses that normally would have had to go out there and find their own funding in, I would imagine, the millions to try and get to be able to scale up and produce at that kind of level. But what we're most excited about at FAN, and probably Andy as well, because Andy was one of the founders of FAN, is the collaborative side of it. So if you can imagine bringing producers, manufacturers, innovators, R&D together, and actually bring those people together, and just imagine putting them all under one roof and just see what you can actually produce. Like, it's going to be So exciting. We're excited because we get to move in as well, but it's just that whole shared space. The other big side of it that Andy mentioned is also about training, because it's going to be a facility where we will be able to have training, and actually see all of this stuff happening in action and have those training facilities on site as well. It really is, I think it really is a game changer, and it will be a game changer particularly for those businesses that want to be able to go out there, try those new markets, whether it's just another region, another state, or even another country, but actually be able to do it without putting, those millions and millions and millions of dollars, and actually produce the product first and then test it and then actually be able to make it. And then it's great because then you hope down the track that once they're 5 years in or however long, that they will then go off and create their own manufacturing facilities and potentially help others out along the way. So, but we're really excited about that collaboration piece. And I suppose from a Sunshine Coast perspective and also the wider regions, it's really going to put the Sunshine Coast on the map for being, a place that can attract investment, that it can attract jobs and, innovation, all of that kind of thing. And I think it's so much more than just for the food and beverage industry or food and agribusiness industry. I think it's actually going to be a game changer for the Sunshine Coast from an economic development point of view as well.